If you're looking at Instagram, it's not a true reflection of gravel. Your cognitive fatigue is insane. The technical downhill of Kenya, you're constantly changing the line. On the downhills, you have to watch what's in front of you and you have to watch what's coming. And you're going, I don't know what speed it was when I crashed, 40 something.
You've set yourself up for a week of riding your bike in Africa, and on day one, you've wrapped your helmet around your face, cracked a couple of ribs and had a lung contusion. What's the mindset there?
If that was the last day that I rode my bike, would I have been proud with what I did? Yeah, absolutely. And then it's like, I'm not a professional. I'm just here for fun. I'm in this amazing country. I've got a bike over there that works. I've got a set of legs that work. Let's just see what happens. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. This week, I have something a little bit different for you, where actually I'm being interviewed on the show, as opposed to me being the one asking the questions. This week, Tom from the InnerFight Endurance podcast and Rob Foster, the guy that runs our InnerFight Endurance community, are asking me all about my recent adventures in Kenya. I was there just a few weeks ago for 2 races. The first race was the UCI Safari Gravel Race, which was a single stage race. And then a few days after, the main event, and something that's been on my radar for quite a long time now, the Migration Gravel Race, which is a 4-day stage race through the Masai Mara. As you'll learn, catching somewhere around 100 kilometers a day on my bike through some pretty unbelievable countryside and wilderness. Loads of different animals and some pretty interesting terrain to ride on. We're running this show also over on the InnerFight Endurance podcast, so you only need to listen to one of them this week. Hopefully it's this one. But these guys, they both also love Kenya. I think Rob Foster loves Kenya more than any of us. If you're watching the video version, you'll see that as we were recording, he was actually wearing the Kenyan national football jersey. That is the depth of his love for this country. But as these guys do week in, week out on the InnerFight Endurance podcast, they have great questions, and I think we had a pretty decent conversation. This week's show announcements brought to you from Australia, where I will be for the coming few weeks. Everything in Dubai is running pretty much as normal, with the exception of Ladies Run Club, which finishes this week and for the next 6 to 7 weeks goes online. I mentioned this quickly last week. Someone messaged in and they didn't quite understood it. We've cleared that up. But just to be clear, if you still want to run with us, ladies, you are welcome. It's just there are not ladies specific sessions running on a Monday and Wednesday like there are throughout the year. We still welcome all ladies on a Tuesday to Track Tuesday, and also to our coffee run on a Friday, and also the weekend runs that Dan has been rolling out the last few weeks and continues on a 3-on, 1-off basis. If you are traveling this summer and you are a lady who wants the Ladies Run program, reach out to Steph, sh@innerfight.com. Things stay exactly the same in the gym. We have a full program for you throughout the summer. Mainline classes run 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, and 9:30 in the morning, and then 5, 6, and 7 in the evening. So there is no excuse not to get involved. Some of you might have a little bit more time over summer. Maybe you want to come twice a day. That is also an option. The mainline class stays exactly the same throughout summer, as does our endurance community sessions. Mondays, cycling, Tuesdays running, Wednesdays cycling, Thursday strength, Friday running, Saturday cycling, and also Sunday, that run that Dan's putting on. So there's plenty to get involved with this summer here at InnerFight. If you want to know more, drop us an email, winning@innerfight.com, and we shall take care of you. That's it for this week's announcements. Let's get into the show. This is episode number 918 of the InnerFight podcast. No matter where you are in the world, thanks a lot for tuning in. As I always say, let's jump into today's show.
Welcome. I want to say to the InnerFight Endurance show, but this is also going out on your show, mate.
Double banger.
I'll just say welcome to you and welcome Skinny.
Welcome.
Our cycling correspondent.
I think he's wearing a running t-shirt.
Running a running t-shirt.
It's a football t-shirt, actually.
Is it?
It's not. It's just a generic Kenyan t-shirt.
It's their football t-shirt, mate. I bought it for you.
It's not their football. Sorry.
Entices people to get onto YouTube and have a look at what he's wearing. But mate, today the show is about you.
Not really.
Come on.
That one.
Come on. You have just returned from Africa for 2 races, actually. One that you trained for and one that you entered last minute. Want to share with us what the plan was?
I guess migration gravel race. Actually, one of your clients did it in 2019, I think. Omar Edge. And I'd heard of it then, and I'd kind of sort of started looking at it, I think, in about 2020, 2021. And then he came and did a talk for us here, which only about 5 people showed up to. And of those 5, I think 2 or 3 have now completed a ultra cycling gravel race.
Yeah.
So, it was quite interesting. And as with these things I generally do, I sort of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole and find every single YouTube video there is. And I was like, fuck, this race looks pretty wild. And obviously from 2017, when I trained a lot for ultra cycling, I was like, well, this race is a lot safer than the races that I was planning on doing because it was on gravel, not on road. And I also thought, if I keep quiet enough, no one else will come. That didn't
That worked well, did it?
Well, 3 others signed up and managed to break one of their legs and ended up with 2 of them, which is absolutely fine. Stevie actually read my write-up and he goes, I didn't realise you wanted to be on your own. And I felt bad for him. So that's the background. And it's called the migration race. There was 2 options. There's a 600K race over 4 days, stage race, and a 450K race over 4 days through the Masai Mara, which, if you haven't been, go to Google. It's pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And it resonated with me.
You mentioned it there, but 6 years on, after having your life changed by a bike crash, you're then going back into this sport, if you like.
Yeah.
And there's one element of it from your side, but another element of it from the family side and the people around you have seen what it has done for you. How long did it take you to get your head around being, in brackets, cyclist again?
2 years.
Post-crash?
Yeah. It was I don't think I didn't start to hate cycling, but I didn't feel safe cycling. And that was, I think I was riding with both of you actually. And one day I just didn't feel scared anymore because I felt every time we'd ride, I was shitting myself, like every time. And if there was, like, it's always good when it's you guys or guys that we know, but then someone else would come in the group. And that's, that's probably why I try and ride a lot on the front, because like I'm fucked the whole time riding on the front, but it's like, I just feel the safest there. So yeah, it took just over 2 years. And I think it was not just like you see images of crashes before they happen, and that never actually happened. So I'd see images in the group of someone going down or something happening. And I'd never ever tell someone, like, some people that haven't ridden in a group before, they can be dangerous, not their fault, but I'd sort of let it play out. But now, like then I was just a lot more cautious, and I'd just be happy to go out of the group. And then the flip side of it is I always thought, like, how Holly feels when I go and ride my bike. And I'm like, I think the safety net was, it's Al Qudra, it's okay. And I think with gravel riding as well, until I had to call her last Saturday and tell her I crashed, which was horrendous. I think with gravel riding and mountain biking, it feels somehow safer.
Can I just jump in? So to the average listener who hears road cycling is less safe than gravel or mountain biking, can you explain that a bit?
It is and it isn't, right? Because there's a few factors. on the road, there's cars. On the road, there's higher speed, which actually can help you in a crash. On the road, we ride more in a group, whereas on gravel and on mountain bike, there's no cars, the speeds are slower, and unless Tom crashes in front of you or behind you.
You were on the front once when Boz crashed into you.
Yeah. Did she crash into me? No, I think I'd just come off the front. No, I'd come off the front. You and Nick were on the front, and she was tired, and she hit Nick's wheel and then came into me. There was the four of us.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was just past one of Nick's graves, Hamari Well. And so it's not a very good comment, Rob. You're right in that gravel riding and mountain biking, is it safer or isn't it safer than road riding? Like I watched Tom crashed into a brick wall in Oman.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Still walking that one off.
Yeah, so it's tricky, mate. I don't think it's the right comparison to say one's safer than the other, but
it's what you feel, right?
Feel safer, probably in a race on a gravel bike.
You're way more comfortable on your mountain bike and gravel bike than I see you on your road bike as well, actually.
Yeah. But that's also, I think, when I was younger, I raced off-road.
Mm.
So that's where the comfort comes from. But yeah, it's weird because when I crashed in 2018, I was riding a gravel bike, right?
On the road, yeah.
On the road.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one.
The thoughts around being alone, is that to do with safety, or that was for a whole different reason?
No, that was a whole different reason, mate. I sort of started, I don't know when the thoughts started coming, but every race that I did or every challenge that I did, if we made it up, we'd always be together. I'd go to races, often with Rob or with guys from the community. And I was like, I don't know, I think you come to a point and I was like, fuck, maybe I'm just a little bit soft, or maybe I need this safety net. Maybe I need to do stuff with my friends. Can I actually do something on my own? And I thought back to when I'd set a goal and done it on my own, and that it was only the ultra cycling goal. Everything else I've done with someone. Mm. And it wasn't self-doubt, but I was like, I don't know. I just think to have no safety, to have no comfort, that's what I wanted to remove. And that's what the race gave. And it forced me, from a research standpoint, from equipment standpoint, it really forced me to learn more. And yeah, it's a weird one, but I think it was that. I was like, fuck. I don't think I thought, can I do a race without my friends or without the community? But I thought, I haven't, so I need to.
Mm.
Fully self-reliant, especially in the prep, because there's so much that goes into that race. The checklists are extensive, and the thought process behind what could happen and what can you control.
Yeah.
It makes you think about it, and then you ship off by yourself with a bike and a whole host of dreams, and then it's on you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's the difference. Like, Rob and I rode back from Jebel Jais, 350k, and we took our equipment list and we're like, okay, you've got that, I've got that. We're always going to be okay. Whenever we go somewhere, whoever it is, we're always, there's always like this. I felt that there's always this safety net. I never forget anything, and I'm quite anal about stuff, but I was like, there's always this safety net. If I'm not feeling good, we can have a chat. I know someone.
Rob Jones is your safety net.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, but it never gets used. Huh? This is the difference. You never have to pull the ripcord. And this is where it's such a weird concept. Like, maybe people don't understand it, but it's like, yeah, but you still do these things. You can still get through them, and you don't pull the ripcord. But the ripcord's there. Mm. And that gives you so much mental safety, and I wanted to take it away. I thought, wow, maybe I can. And it was weird. Like, I rock up in in Kenya, and I don't know anyone. You go into the hotel and you can see like people with bikes. It's like, okay, should I talk to them? Shouldn't I talk to them? Do I want to be really on my own? And then so I stayed in Nairobi, and then we moved to Naivasha where the first race was, and people are getting off the bus at various resorts, and then there's this one guy left on the bus, and we're going to the same place, and he's an American guy. Well, okay, cool. He's a cool guy. He's loads of experience, and and then we get to the hotel, and they're like, "Okay, so you guys are in a room," and we're like, "I'm like, no." My immediate reaction was, "No, we're not in a room," like because we weren't. But their rooms, typical Kenya, like it was like a bungalow with 2 separate rooms, but then this common living room that, like, that's their setup. And I said to him, do you think we're getting stitched up? Do you think because they think we're coming together? Anyway, the point is I had to make an effort to build this relationship with this guy, and I was with him for 3 nights there, and then I was going to be with him for 4 nights in the migration race, and you have to redo all of these things. And I think that's where a lot of the growth in these races comes from. Is meeting new people, sharing experiences, learning.
Yeah.
It was,
Show him the etiquette of a gas chamber.
He knew about the gas chamber. He was also an incredibly good, like, I wouldn't say he wasn't a bike mechanic, but he was insanely good at fixing bikes. And I'd taken my rear derailleur off, and it's the first time I'd taken it off this bike, and I sort of put it back on and nothing was working. And he's one of these people as well. He just loves to fix shit for people. So he's just like, just give me that. And like 30 seconds later, he's fixed it. And then after the first race, my chain was dropping off the big cassette at the back between the spokes and the cassette.
Never something you like to hear.
I'm like, oh, this
adjustment screw.
Yeah. And he's like, next morning, he goes like, I'll fix that. Obviously I wasn't in the mood to fix it, and the next morning he's like looking at his phone, YouTube, check, so it worked out really good, and he was like the best amateur. I think he was 10th overall in the race, so he's an absolute weapon.
Wow.
Yeah, which was good.
Before we jump to where the race was and what that the own challenges that brings with it, the training side of the race, you've so far in 2024 you've done 2 Xterra races. You ticked off your goal of a sub-3 marathon, and then you had, I think, 7 weeks in order to train for the 4 days, so 4-stage race, gravel race. So it's definitely would class as ultra endurance racing. Skinny, to bring you in, you did a little bit of help with training to increase diagonalism. That's a new word.
Diagonalism.
What do you need to train for these kind of races? And then it will come to you, mate, around the specifics of it as well that you used.
It is interesting because I remember that chat with Omar way back when, and it was the corrugations that piqued my interest, and also the elevation. And I was like, what do you need to do to be able to complete this in a good manner, in a good fashion? And the overriding thing, as always, is endurance. The ability to sustain, right? That's the simple answer. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. But it's also repeated efforts of high power to get through like technical sections, hill sections, like boggy sections, corrugations where you have to apply power. You can't just stick in zone 2 all the time. It's just not possible. So it's the ability to repeat those efforts over and over again over a course of 4 days and recover, which is actually probably the most important thing. After each stage, and be fresh enough to put out the same power. And then you look at your day 1 to day 4, and you'd hope to see like almost, if you've gone into the taper right, a slight growth in your power. It's only 4 days, it's not massive amounts of time, so you can still grow your fitness a little bit within that space. And if you were to do a 10-minute max effort, and at the start and the finish, you'd want to see that person's able to repeat it. So it's repeatability or fatigue resistance. Durability. There you go. That's what it comes down to. It's your overall ability and capacity to recover. Zone 2 needs to be as big as the new airport that's getting built. And you have to be able to put out repeated efforts consistently throughout the whole ride. That's what it is. That's it. And then put into the mix old mate up at 2,500 meters or 2,000 meters, your ability to recover is massively affected.
Yeah.
Like you have to work harder, have to burn more calories, so then you've got to get them in to make sure you're able to do that.
And you also coached Stevie towards this race.
Yeah.
As going in as someone who's working, not saying you don't work full time, mate, but
hey, come on now.
he's got quite a decent amount of time constraints. He's flying in and out. He's on a busy schedule. What's the sort of time demands? What did you ask of him in order for him to, which he has completed the race?
In the final weeks, probably 2 months actually, we were asking for repeated big days to repeat and replicate what it feels like to ride like consistently day after day on gravel. Sometimes that happened, sometimes that did not happen.
When it rained, not.
And to build up that fatigue, so weekends were long rides consistently, no real pressure on any sort of power output apart from the end where we tried to ride? Like 3-4 hours. You can't, because then you're cooked for the rest of the week. You can't push them too far, because then if somebody has to travel back to where they work and then has to slaughter themselves 15 hours a day, then they are not getting any recovery. It's because stress from life brings that down so much. So you need to be smart what you do. So the week was for quality on the turbo, where we had control over the power that you put out, and then the weekend was for volume. And it's just rinse and repeat.
Meanwhile, mate, you were deep frying yourself.
Yeah, it was good. It was very good.
What in your head did you want to achieve in your training to be as confident as possible going into the race?
It's simple. You need to be able to sit on the bike for 4+ hours on uneven surface. And mate, we talked back and did I get more comfortable with that, or was it because we changed the bike fit? I don't know. That's the key. 100% the key. You have to first be able to sit on the bike 4 to 6 hours, back-to-back days. Yeah. For me, because of the weather, and because the power meter on the bike was not giving me any sort of data anyway, it was useless. It's fixed now, thanks Dale. It was a case of being on the bike. And because it was getting increasingly hot, the effort level was irrelevant, to be honest. Yeah. So and that's the thing, like all of the complaints there, people just being on the bike for that long and just shaking that much. Like it's so uneven. And we have it here. Alcuda is perfect for it, to be honest. There's corrugation. There's not as much, like, okay, you can't have a single line like you can have in Kenya of 120K, but okay, you have to do some loops and you have to go back and forward and you have to do 10K on a road. And, you know, some days I joined you guys going up the stick or here or there, but generally you can do it. So that's why I did it. It's purely specificity to within that small time frame as well. Because like you said, what I had before, if I'd have trained long days, 5 or 6 hours back to back, or like 20, 25 hours a week on the bike in that time, I wouldn't have been able to perform in those other things, which in that moment, they meant more to me than the race in June. Yeah. So that's why I did it like I did it, yeah, with some of what Skinny was saying, with some of the things that he came with. I'd do it a lot different next time.
Really? What would you do different?
You see, there's two different approaches to the race. There's either you want to complete the race or you want to have a crack. If you want to have...
We've got a podcast on that, haven't we?
It's compete or complete.
Yeah. And I wouldn't go back. I mean, it changed because of my crash in the first race and what have you. I wouldn't go back and be happy to have a normalized power of what I had, whether it was right or wrong on my power meter. So I would make it more of a priority within the 6 months. And I would want to ride the race 85% power throughout. And fuel accordingly, which I didn't because I couldn't breathe. but that's how I would want to ride the race. So it's every day, it's like what Rob said, every day, and then recovery, but every day hard. So what that would look like, I would start earlier, and I would ride, instead of what I said there, because the temperature was too hot, and I was fried anyway, I would ride those 4 hours, 6 hours, even I would have a block in the middle of 4 days back to back of 8 hours on gravel, because that's how long the race takes. And then when if you're comfortable in that and there's no pain, then that gravel at gas. Like you see the pros, look at one of the first race, 100K. How heavy was the guy? Maybe 78, 80 kilos, 294 watts. And he was like 15th. So you look at, and I'm not going to win these races, but you still, you can go and you can enjoy, but that's not really interesting. So I would, and that's what I'm thinking a lot now, like whether actually I want to go through that and do that.
You would do longer days at higher power, that's what you're saying?
Longer-ish, yeah.
Yeah.
It depends, mate. I would first do a little bit of adaptation and specificity, like, okay, how am I feeling 8 hours on the bike? Because I think if you can't ride, maybe not 8, but 6 hours on the bike in zone 2, be comfortable and come off without shoulder and back pain, I think you're not going to go into 4 or 5 hours at 85% power. You're going to be too sore here that your legs, it's irrelevant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I'd start with that in the colder months, and then maybe because of when the race is, it's in June. Maybe you have to do a camp somewhere else in May, or just be happy that you've done the training, and indoors you can, you have to be able to get on the turbo at home in May and June and go for 90 minutes at least at 87, 93, 300 watts. That's where the challenge comes. And then see how you feel the next day. I wasn't tired. I did less hours on my bike in Kenya than I did in my training. But we know why, right? And it's, so it's very interesting. It's true what Rob said. You need certain parts where you need a lot more, like super high power, because you're going into like streams and you have to come out, and it's always steep coming out. If you have too much power, you'll snap your chain, which I saw a few times, and this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think you just have to be insanely good at sort of, you have to hold your sweet spot for hours.
Also, though, with those kind of courses, which we'll come to, but it's not a case of holding one power for a long time. You have to be good at the changes. Like you're saying, you've got high torque moments, then you're downhill for a while where your legs fill with lactate, then you're back into the high torque moments, which is where training in Al Qudra is hard because it's flat.
Yes, it is. It is hard. That's the biggest challenge. Where
in the UAE could you head to do your hill work, or were you heading anywhere?
I didn't, mate. And that was conscious. I could have gone and ridden Jebel Jais and stuff like that. Again, I think if it was a bigger run-in, I would use a lot of the gravel route that we used for Jebel Jais to the gym. I think there's some really good sections in there that you can do. That road that is down in Oman, the gravel road between the coffee shop in Yiti to the other end, that would be, because that's what, 25K. So to go there and back and do 2 efforts on that, like get 100K on that, that's like absolutely perfect. And you'd have to do some things like that. But then it's also like the technical downhill of Kenya and the technical downhill here. This is a piece of cake.
It's a different level.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people don't really get. It's not 6 hours on your bike. Your cognitive fatigue is insane. because you're constantly changing the line. On the downhills, you're like, you have to watch what's in front of you because it's there, and you have to watch what's coming. So your mind, and you're going, I don't know what speed it was when I crashed, 40 something. So it's coming super fast.
It's called cycling sight, isn't it? Where you look further ahead.
Yeah.
So you've already processed what's directly in front of you, but you're all like 20, 30 meters, and that comes from experience of that terrain. So if you haven't got exposure to it, you're absolutely cooked, because then you're having to focus on the immediate, and that's over in a split second, so you aren't actually able to react or respond to it. But if you have your sight, which is over there, like Pidcock sees about 6 miles ahead of him, he can pick out a line without even thinking about it, so that the cognitive fatigue isn't as much.
And that's where a little bit of perhaps a camp or a trip away to, it depends how good you want to do and how much you want to plow into it, really. But that's the key. Can you prepare for that race here? Yeah. The 450, don't enter 600 because you won't have a good time. And like you said, Rob, for Stevie, like, you have to be able to ride 6 to 8 hours a day, multiple times, in my opinion, multiple times of 4-day blocks in your lead up to it. If you're unable to do that, go 450 and have a nice time. You're still going to be in the saddle for 5 hours a day. Like, the last stage was 160K.
Yeah.
Still
riding through Africa.
Gravels, some days Stevie had an average speed of like 14 Ks an hour. The top guys on some slow days are just over 30 Ks an hour average. It's a lot different.
Africa in itself is a whole challenge.
For you.
We've both been
hey, come on.
You've both been with me in an airport security room getting irate. It brings its own challenges, right? They on an organization level, on a time level, on a location sometimes level, even when you're checking into your hotel, you're not getting what you expect. I think that is what you get with Africa. You don't get what you expect. It could be better. It could be a lot worse. I think we go to Kenya every year for the learnings of running. I actually just think going to Africa once a year, just in general, is great for you. Old Kipchoge's got his vitamin N. I've got my vitamin A. You've entered a race before the migration race, so a UCI gravel race. And this one, you just want to have a crack at it. You did it sort of not as your priority A, it was your B1. You've mentioned it a few times, but you came down in it and you cracked a couple of ribs and had a lung contusion. We don't need to go into too much details around why that is, but what most people be interested in is you've set yourself up for a week of riding your bike in Africa, and on day one, you've wrapped your helmet around your face and then you're off to an X-ray. What's the mindset there?
I mean, I entered migration race and we didn't know the UCI race was happening. And then they sent there's a UCI race, single stage. And I was like, well, I'm there anyway. I'll go a few days earlier. It'll be a great experience. And then I guess it's competition. Is it ego? Is it just like, if that was the last day that I rode my bike, would I have been proud with what I did? Yeah, absolutely. And mate, I was going too fast and I was taking risks. I'd taken risks before. I'd descended at 80 Ks an hour, 79.6 Ks an hour if I checked my training peaks. I just got in this race and I was like, I guess a lot of when I raced before came back, and again, I think it's hard for me maybe to just tootle along, and I just rode as hard as I fucking could. And it was the last descent, and what we were saying before, you're looking there, you're looking here. By this stage, there was so much dust. My glasses were just full. We'd come up this climb, which everyone, apparently, I don't know if the pros, but everyone walked because it was so savage. So I'm sweating. So I've got water on my glasses as well. And I just didn't see what was in front of me. Would I change it? It'd be better if I didn't crash. But I just, it's you're right, mate, how you sort of said it. Like, what's your A race here? What are you going for? I was going to ride my bike, you know, and it was hard. Like I wrote in my article that the 48 hours afterwards it was a real mess because you're like, okay, should I go? Shouldn't I go? And I've got a nurse in the UK helping me and a doctor here helping me, and you guys looking at a scan that you had no clue about. And,
what was your foot?
Yeah. Why do you send us an x-ray of your fingers and stuff? You know, and you're in this thing and you can't breathe and nothing's comfortable, and I've trained all this time and I'll go home and I won't go home, and I'll just go and relax and I'll check into a lodge and I'll just take it easy for a week. And you want closure, don't you? And I think it's natural, and it's like you wake up the next morning and you're just a little bit better.
You've also going back to the start, you're on your own.
You're on your own.
Which is actually what you wanted.
Which is what I wanted. Yeah, you're alone, mate, and no one can, I mean, you guys sent me some good messages, and, you know, I spoke to my dad who, yeah, he didn't really say much. He's like, that's bike racing.
That's, I think, yeah.
You know?
That's what I thought. Oh, that's for sure it's ride the bike, huh?
He said, that's riding the bike. And I was like, yeah. I said, no, I know that, but, you know, and then I felt bad, a little bit bad for Holly, you know, and I was like, fuck, what am I going to tell her? Like, my nose has got blood all over it and stuff. And I was fucked, right? And I'm in a lot of pain, and you know, and I've got the phone like this on WhatsApp video, and you know, I couldn't not call her, and I didn't want to lie to her, and she said, what have you done? And I'm like, honestly, I think I've broken some ribs. And I knew that I'd broken some ribs. Like I could feel it. It was so fucking painful, you know, and I couldn't breathe, and I was like, this is exactly the same as my crash, but not quite as bad, my other crash. And yeah, I knew straight away that I was in bad shape, and you know, and then I you know, that's the problem with video calls, isn't it? Because I can see her face, and I was like, I think she might cry, and then I'm like, that would hurt me. And there's all this stuff going on, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is just a nightmare. Anyway, she just laughed. She's just like, you're an idiot.
She was pretty relaxed here.
Yeah, was she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. She
said you had a tumble. You had a tumble.
Yeah.
In an Australian accent.
But then she just, you know, I woke up, so then there's Sunday and then Monday, and I sent her a message Monday. I said, listen, I'm going to get on the bus. Because the bus from the first race was in a place called Navasha and had to go to Masai Mara. I said, I'm going to get on the bus. And she sent me a message. She said, I'm so happy you're getting on the bus. I was like, wow. I said, oh yeah, thanks. She goes, you've put a lot into it. Just go and try and ride. And I'm like, wow. Like, and that's where she's decent, because it's just like, I think it would be easier for her to be cautious or maybe selfish and say, mate, like, you know, because I told her that the doctor here had said, if you fall, you're in trouble. And, you know, so I didn't want to hide any of the details from her. It's not the way we operate. And yeah, she said, I'm glad you've gone. You've put a lot into it. Go and ride your bike. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And that was my mindset. I was like, cool, I'm on this bus. It was 9 hours.
That's a typical time for any bus ride in Kenya, by the way.
A little bit
Buys everywhere is 20 minutes.
A little bit above average for 200 Ks, mate.
For Kenya.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was that.
Do you then lean into a bit more of Kenya itself? Like, the people there are so friendly. They're just amazing people. You're looking around you and there's obviously poverty everywhere, and you're thinking maybe it's how lucky you are despite having some cracked ribs. And
oh, mate, 100%. Like, and that was my mindset. I think it's quite when we get something like that back from a doctor that says, you'll be okay, just don't have a bad crash. It's almost like you've got some clearance and you've got some hope. And then it's like, I'm not a professional. I'm just here for fun. I'm in this amazing country. I've got a bike over there that works. I've got a set of legs that work. Let's just see what happens. And that was completely, I think when I woke up on Monday morning or when I went to bed on Sunday night, and I knew I'd packed my bike and I knew I was going to the start on Tuesday morning, 100%, mate. I was like, I've got this bike, I've got these legs, and I'm here. Like, I can ride at 12 Ks an hour. I can let the whole field go and I could ride at 12 Ks an hour if that's what makes me feel safe. So 100%, mate. Like you have to, and I was never going to win the race, You have to just take it easy and take stock and go. Because I'd made a decision, I wanted to be there. At no stage did I want to come home.
No.
If I'm honest, I never wanted to come home.
I thought you'd take up a social media job or something, to be honest. Bike on the roof. He'll be hanging out with broken ribs.
I couldn't talk, mate. It was hard to talk. It was hard to laugh. I couldn't shout. Like every time you're not
going to tell a zebra passing left, are you? But you went back to your original aim, which was to be alone and be free, I suppose, of the constraints, not constraints, but the safety net of having people around you that you know. So regardless of what and how fast you rode, you were still in that mindset of, I'm here.
That's the thing. You're 100% right, mate. And I think I wrote it in my write-up. My goal to go there was to ride my bike as hard as I could. Now, my hard as I could just wasn't as fast as what maybe it could have been. But I still rode my bike as hard as I could.
RPE.
100% RPE.
100% RPE.
100%.
Yeah.
But it's the frustration or managing the frustration of, actually, I should be over there, not here. And I was comfortable from the start. Like, I've never done it in a race. Stage 1, there's 2 water tables. And the 2 guys that I was riding with, they wanted to stop for like 20 to 30 minutes.
Zad stop.
It's my kind of ride, that is.
I was like, they were like, mate, just go if you want. And I hadn't told them at the first water table what was wrong with me. So I didn't really want to tell the organizers, and a few of the riders knew, but I didn't want to tell the organizers just in case they were like, that's a safety risk, you need to get out the race. So they said at the checkpoint 1, they're like, we're going to sit, they said our backs are not in good shape, we're going to sit down for 20 minutes. I was like, okay. And I was just sat in this chair having some watermelon and some pineapple, and I was like, wow, this is just weird. But I've ridden my bike as hard as I could till here, and it's probably a good idea to take a rest. And then we did the same to the next checkpoint, and 117K and 6.5 hours later, we pulled into the camp. And I had a great day.
It's where the motivation, which is often intrinsic, extrinsic, seen that way, but actually it's a sliding scale. And you can catch yourself being more on the ego side of it and then slide yourself back to the internal side of it. But it's not one or the other. No. You're always sliding in and out. So it's a great, certainly for you to hear, mate, for you to say is like, yeah, you are thinking, I wish I was up the road because you want to be racing, which is an ego-driven thing. But also when you can't do that, there's no point in sitting on it.
Yeah, and you're right, mate. You flip from one to the other. And then you're also right in what you said, like you're in Kenya and you have this privilege of riding this bike in this race, and you have all of these great things, and I think it's all like supernatural, like not supernatural, but very natural, but it's the awareness to say, okay, why is my mind saying I need to be up the road? Yeah. And actually, can I be up the road or not? And, at checkpoint 1, a few of the pros were behind us because there was this mayhem 2K section of mud. And it was literally boggy. Like, I've had it on my mountain bike before where the wheels actually lock. Our wheels were locked. Bikes were probably 5 kilo heavier. You had to pick it up and walk with it and then get a stick to pull all the mud out. And you guys know what it's like. It's clay. So it's not just, and these pros got stuck for over an hour, and we're at this checkpoint relaxing, having pineapple and watermelon, and one of the pros comes through who won the race last year or something, Lucas Baum, or I don't know what his name is. Yeah, it's a lot of, and that's why, like, the perspective on a lot of things just changes, which is cool.
Yeah,
I think.
I've got a question, actually, funny enough.
Here we go.
Here we go. No, when you said, extrinsic, intrinsic, and all that jazz, but for you, if you were full fitness going there, riding hard at 85%, just let's say that's the number, is that not still intrinsic to you? You just want to ride the bike hard?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely right.
And then you rode 85% of what you could do.
Yeah.
Injured. So it's actually all coming intrinsically. And the frustration, is it not the fact that you've trained quite hard and you just lose like that being present?
I agree with you, but I also think, like, we're conditioned to understand that a race is also a race against others.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where the external part of this equation comes from, and I think it's a natural feeling to think, even if it doesn't matter where you are on that scale, whether you're fit or whether you're not fit.
Yeah.
If someone's ahead of you, you're always, okay, that guy's ahead. Can I catch them or can't I catch them? And where's that going? And the same when people are behind you, it's like, okay, am I holding, especially on a bike or running, am I holding it? Am I not holding it? Are they catching me? Are they not catching me? So I think it's definitely, and I think we'd be bullshitting ourselves if we said that we go to these types of races or we enter a running race or anything not wanting to beat the people around us. We want to, mate. You absolutely want to. Like, it's not... Now, am I going to have sleepless nights about it? No. Am I going to be upset? Maybe. Because maybe I didn't ride as hard as I could because I got my nutrition wrong or got whatever.
Yeah.
But I think if we remove that completely, it changes a lot.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I think it's naturally we want to beat people. That's competitive sport. That's what we train for, I suppose. That's what we, especially as kids, you get ranked straight away, and that's how you're brought up and institutionalized, and the competitive beat somebody in front of you. Yeah, I think it is a healthy thing, and I think no matter what you do it. I think it's the weighting of scale of where that importance lies, and it's the transition from maybe being an immature athlete where that's all you care about to being a mature athlete where you can sort of balance that out in your head and be at peace with it. It's just interesting, mate.
Hey, and I'll give you a good example. Day 2, I don't know how many Ks into the race, 15K climb just about to start, and I'm with a group who I could have ridden with the whole day. I'd ridden 20 odd K with them. Everything's good. I can't breathe. My lungs were, my broken lung was really sore, and I was coughing and spluttering, and I had to pull over at the bottom of this climb, which is something I generally never do. You pull over at the top, right? You just nut it out. And I pulled over, and I literally had to have a minute, and I just watched them go and go. And I was like, fuck. And then I was like, but that's okay. So I was gutted.
Yeah.
Absolutely gutted. And I had a piss, and then I get back on the bike, and the girl who I'd been riding with for the first 20K I'd been trying to help was leading the amateur race. And I saw her because she was in this obnoxious leader's jersey from a brand that was a sponsor. And I saw her coming, and I was like, this is a golden opportunity. Because I'd helped her a bit, and I told her I would help her as much as I could, and she was very appreciative. And I was like, I wonder if I can just help her up this mountain. And I took her 15, 16K to the top, and then the whole game's changed again.
It's incredible. It reminds me of, I was listening to a podcast with Geraint Thomas today when he broke his pelvis.
His pelvis,
in the tour on day 2, I think it was.
That was Tour Down Under, though.
No, it was Tour de France. He broke his pelvis in the Tour de France, and he rode the whole thing with it.
Check your facts.
I will check it. I will absolutely 100% check it, Cocker. I just listened to it now.
Anyway, the point is he did ride.
He did ride, but then he was there in one of the best shapes he's ever been in, looking to be Froome's backup man, like the super, and all of a sudden he doesn't have that anymore. And then he's riding for 2 weeks, and I remember watching it and seeing him ride, and he would just want to help a little bit and find a purpose within that. And it's like he gets paid a lot of money to do that. That's his income, that's his livelihood, and he's trained for a year to get to that point in the best shape. And in stage 2, I think it was, he crashes and he breaks his pelvis. What decision are you going to make to go forward, and how are you going to make it mean something to you?
Yeah, and from that moment, from day 2, I felt a little bit better, and I helped her in a bit, and then I helped her in the climb, and then I crashed in front of her, and that didn't help her too much, but we'll skip that bit. and
breathed her off the course.
I was just constantly looking for, can I push or can I help? Can I push? Can I help? And, day 3, I caught up with a guy, and day 2, they'd had a really long day, the guys that were riding the long course, and I was able to ride with him for a bit, and the same on day 4. And, you find these, and I think that you got to keep just reassessing and resetting, and, and that's what one of the riders said to me. They're like, just go. I'm like, if I go, it's empty. What will I go for? I'd rather just sit and ride for you for a bit. When I'm ready, I'll go. And in the end, those 2 riders, one of them stopped with the other one. This was on day 4 because he wasn't keeping too well. So we went, and I went with this other guy, this young South African kid, and and I just kept on checking, is he with me? Is he still with me? Because I was like, we've ridden together for 100 and something K. If I lose him now, like, what do I gain? I was always going to beat him on the line, right? That was my plan.
Track Tuesday. On the line, like tracker.
Literally. But whereas normally I think, like, maybe that's why this way around was it was the only way, but it was the best, is that I was just looking for these little opportunities to be with people, to have a different experience that maybe under normal circumstances I'd have just gone, right, if I murder myself for the next 10 minutes, this guy will have no chance.
Yeah.
But then what will I do? And you never think about that, because then you're literally hanging on for the next 40K. Is he catching me? Is he catching me? Whereas this way was beautiful.
I think that's a little counter to the being alone goal.
Yeah.
You're now seeking out others.
Yeah, it is, mate. It's what is being alone in the race. Being alone to go to the race was going to a race with no one I knew.
Yeah.
Why did I want to do that? I wanted to be exposed in different ways than I was exposed. I wanted to have to build friendships and relationships. I wanted to have to figure out who to ride with. So actually, it's part of, on its own, in isolation, you're right, but actually it's part of it.
Yeah. Because
now I've found some people, and I met some great people who are way more experienced in this racing than I am, and I've connected with them and I've grown. You know, and I can go to another race with them.
So the alone challenge was almost, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs, rung number 2?
Yeah.
It's almost a challenge. Can I get back up to rung number 2? It's like sending all your money home and going, can I start fresh?
Can I start, can I build this, can I go in not having one of you guys to say, hey mate, can I do that?
Yeah.
And, I mean, we get loads of time alone even when we're together, right? So it's not that I need to be alone on the bike the whole time. It's just, you just need to go to a race where it's a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, to be honest, I was like, I don't just ride on my own. And there were the times where I was like, oh, if I go on my own, it's empty. It's empty because I'm not here to be on my own the whole time in the race. I'm here to experience new people, different human beings. And maybe I can help these people. And maybe they can help me.
Yeah.
It helped me riding in a group. Why didn't I leave the group? Because I wanted to be with them.
Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah, maybe there is some genuine conflict. Maybe I need to go again alone. Don't send me any athletes.
Blairos.
Yeah, Blairos.
The gravel scene is, well, now 10 years ago, the gravel scene was quite unknown. It was very niche. Then, where as always within sport, brands find a gap and tend to fill it. Now gravel actually likes to be seen as being niche, but it's grown in popularity through the roof and new techs being brought out every year for it. You've been to road races, you've been to mountain bike races, you've now been to a gravel race, multi-stage. Who's the race for? If you were looking at a profile of people, who's going to these?
It's so interesting, mate. I don't know. A lot of it, I think it's quite split. You've got sort of hardcore ultra guys. You know, I was chatting to a guy and he just flew into Colombo and built his bike at the airport. 55-year-old American guy, built his bike at the airport and came back 3 weeks later. Hardcore bike packers who obviously have used gravel bikes for years. The tech's changing a little bit. You've then got, through different brands, this new age of cyclist, because it's not road cycling and it's not mountain biking, but it's a bike that can just go anywhere. It's expressive. You can, and the apparel sort of comes with it, and it's almost like this persona. Is it related to social media? Yes, some of them don't care, but still want to wear these block-colored cycling kits. And so you've got those guys. Are they great at cycling? Not really. They've all got good jobs, disposable income, mid-30s. And if you looked at some of them, to be fair, you'd be like, how is this guy going to make it 4 days in the bush? It's too polished. It's like, far better gravel bike, ride down to fields on Jumeirah Beach, take a picture with the Burj and done. Your gravel bike has never been on gravel, but these guys like adventure.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time. And then you've obviously got the pros who, Van Avermaet is racing at Mohoric is racing, all of these guys. I mean, Lachlan Morton, it's crazy what he's doing. I think it's a really interesting time, and I actually think over the coming 2 or 3 years, and I was chatting to someone who works in the cycle industry about it, like in the coming 2 or 3 years, there'll be a big growth. And why not? You guys saw it, okay? I can ride on my gravel bike from my house, safely through the desert, get to here, get to Al Qudra, ride with you guys on road bikes until you go too fast, and then it gets a little bit harder.
Never me.
You can bunny hop off stuff. Mountain biking is quite freeing, but you always feel a little bit constrained by speed because we're used to going fast on road bikes. Whereas gravel bike, even with, I've got 45 mil tires, you can do anything. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what's going to happen, but with this, whatever it's called, the whole series and stuff, and Yeah, there's a lot. I think I qualified for the World Championships, which is in Belgium.
Get a countdown on.
Yeah,
go
you
on.
know. But apparently it's not a very good course, so and the pros will ride it on road bikes, but then there's a race a few weeks before in Girona, and a few guys have messaged me, come and race this race. You know, it's a very interesting, very, very interesting audience, and I guess it's kind of a bit like ultra running.
I was going to ask, is it ultra running about 10 years ago?
Sounds like ultra running to me.
Are UTMB going to buy a gravel series is what I'm getting at.
100%.
100%.
100%.
It'll get bought up, I think. And I think from what I see from those guys that are, what's it called, like the Gravel Earth guys that are actually the organising body of all these gravel races, you know, I think that's where they're aiming. I think the only challenge you've got is the UCI affiliation, whereas
UCI have got their own races now. That's the thing. It's being more and more professionalised through that. So there's that clear disparity between that. You've got the cool races like Migration, and then you've got like the Unbound, like the OGs, which are like the purists. And there's big backlash from the gravel community against what's happening within the gravel scene, because it's being too... It's meant to be free, meant to be able to go anywhere, and they feel like it's being the soul of gravel's being taken away.
But I think that's where these races there should be, or there could be more of them if they can logistically put them together. There was over 150 people at the Migration race and about 400 or 300 at the Safari race.
That's class.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of Kenya, 9-hour bus ride to get there. You know, it's like you've said a few times, Tom, it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's nothing glam. You can't have a wash. We had bush showers, long drop shitters. Like I've still got, my toenails are still dirty.
Solid.
It's a good sign.
You know, it's interesting. But I think there's a big land grab. I mean, we've seen the brands that have sort of directed some of their apparel towards it. You know, and I mean, far out those Castelli shorts. Like, they saved my hip. I have a cut on my hip, but the rip stop, that, you know, incredible, more function over fashion. But you look at some of the fashion brands, you know, they're selling bib shorts at 400 euros. Like, and they're shit. People are saying these shorts are shit. You know, one of the lads is an Australian guy. He said to me, I said, "Oh mate, you've got a lot of this brand," and he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "They're 400 euros a shot." I said, "Are they any good?" He said, "They're rubbish." I said, "Why have you got them?" He said, "My sister works, so I get 50% off." He said, "There is no way in my lifetime I will buy one piece of apparel from this company at full price."
That's still 200 euros.
That's a lot of money.
Guess the brand.
Yeah, it's not the one you're thinking.
Not Past Normal Studios.
It is that. I thought you were going to say Rafa.
No. Rafa, 400 euros, cheap.
Yeah, well, that as well. So
anyone in Rafa's full Blero suit, I think.
Yeah, it's funny because Castelli have it, huh?
Yeah. Also, 4 big brands, I heard.
Yeah. It's an interesting one because on day 2 of the Migration race, I went just bottles and had no problems.
It's funny. And you met some of the people there who were riding, Chris McCormack.
Yeah.
Another guy you mentioned
Nick
who'd
Gates.
done a couple of tours. But if, this is for the old school triathlon lovers, Chrissy Wellington, if you remember her story.
Yeah.
Do you remember how she got strong?
Riding gravel bike.
Through South America, which would have been early 2000s.
Jeez.
So I wonder how much as well it's coming over to people understanding coming away from the road for a bit, getting strong in different areas through all the reasons you've talked about can help them go back into what they're doing and be stronger for it.
Mate, listen, we'll ride tomorrow and God knows how it'll feel. It could feel, but if you ride on road after doing that, you have to feel something.
It's smooth or nothing.
Maybe I'm still knackered, but you have to feel, you know, like 300 watts or whatever on gravel. You are shaking. And this is another plug for all the strength that we talk about. I really didn't have any problems. Like one, I have some calluses on my hands, and one day I thought I was rubbing some blisters here. But if you do your core work, if you do your shoulder work properly, you'll be fine. But you're going non-stop the whole day, you know. So you take, and you still want to put out 300 watts. Imagine how much energy. Like I was thinking. The only thing I would change in my strength is just more isometric holds. I remember when I first started PTing, and Schumacher was in the gym, and he used to come in and just hold dumbbells and walk for like an hour at a time with the dumbbells like this. Yeah, and his arms wouldn't change, you know, and I would do a bit more isometric stuff, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Entering, mate, on your factor. You always talk about being able to put a thicker tire on.
I got 32s in there now, pal. No sliders up.
That's another thing. In that race, Menzies was almost on the money. 2 or 2.1 inch tire would have been beautiful. I had, which is about 57 mil. I had 45s. Didn't have one puncture, but all the pros. I mean, Chad Hager is riding a mountain bike tire. Yeah.
Chaddy.
Good name, that. Chad Hager.
Chad Hager.
Great rider. Love to try.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, he was like, he said, mate, this is not the gravel that we're used to riding.
Yeah.
It's just too hard.
So there is other, in this series, there's one in Iceland, isn't there?
Yeah.
Humber did. And that was totally different. You had to go through a couple of fjords and all that.
Winters did that one.
Huh?
Winters as well.
Winters did that, yeah. Correct.
I mean, then you've got obviously the tracker. You've got some decent races. I know Shepard's into this stuff, and
So we're talking about them.
he loves to talk about it. Yeah, he said to me before I went, it was on his bucket list, but now he's seen it. It's not so. I think he's lost the bucket.
I like the bucket.
He dropped it down the well.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, mate, gravel. I mean, you went there for not just a bike race or challenge. You got some good stuff out of there. As always, turn it into a great lesson for yourself and hopefully for others who are listening. Yeah. Gravel is there to challenge you. If you go in with the expectation of it being like a road race or being like a road ride or anything predictable, you're probably in the wrong spot for it. Yeah. Even more so in Africa. What would you give this race as a recommendation rating, 1 to 10?
I think it depends what you want. It's a great race, but it's everything we've said. If you, like Rob said, Stevie's working a number of hours. Did Stevie enjoy it? In parts. End of day one, if I'd have had an aeroplane waiting for him, he would have left. Is he happy he finished it? Does he want to? Yeah, so, mate, it's a fantastic race. It really is. But I've not been to an ultra race that's not fucking brilliant, mate. You know?
As you make it, right?
It's as you make it. But I think, you know, how can I say it? If you're looking for something different, I think if I was to move to the UK now, I would ride a gravel bike. I wouldn't buy a road bike. I'd take my gravel bike, that would be it. Yeah. I probably wouldn't even take a mountain bike, to be honest, because there's too many private paths that used to be bridle ways and whatever. You might as well have a gravel bike. Here, it's great, and there's some fantastic races. If you want to race, like Christian came, he just did the safari race, then went on a safari for 4 days. So I think it's here to stay. I think it's a fun race. You know, if ultra is something that you like, if you like being in the bush, or if you like a bit of adventure, if you like wearing €400 bib shorts, it's a 10 out of 10. You know, but I think if you think that you can fluff it, I think if you think that you can't, if you skip your strength work, if you don't do what Rob was saying, intervals wise, if you're not specific with the terrain, you will have a horrible time. Mm-hmm. It will absolutely drill you. And even some of the pros at the end were complaining of their shoulders. It's on that gravel, it's tough. I haven't raced in Europe, so I don't know. I'll go to Girona in September. We do another show.
You again you get out what you put in, right? If you put the preparation, you give the actual race due diligence and respect, you'll always walk out happy. If you go and try and fluff it, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, if you're looking at Instagram, it's not a true reflection of gravel. That's, I think, one of the biggest things I would say. Gravel has been made to look like travel. It's like van life, isn't it? You know?
No, getting fired up on van life.
No.
It's a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've not seen a picture of a van life where the toilet that you installed has leaked and there's shit all over your bed.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me that doesn't happen. It's just like...
It reeks of your shoes because they have to sit in there every night.
Yeah.
Well, you open up the doors and it's not a beautiful picturesque view. It's just rain and some like the back of somebody else's van because it's back to back. Morning.
Yeah, literally, you know, and it's the same for gravel on Instagram. People are posting the good stuff, you know, and that's why yesterday, you know, we made a joke from it, but in 2 races, I'm carrying my bike because that's the only option, you know. If I'd have ridden through that, it would have been above the top tube almost in places, you know, and you just... So the reality is, and that's the riders were complaining on day one with all the mud I spoke about. You know, it's not, as always, Instagram is a snapshot, but it's, if you want something a bit wild, and if you want to ride as hard as you can, that's cool.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Australia next.
Australia next. Have to skip the gravel race because I'm taking my dad to watch the All Blacks against England get thumped. But the route will be there, and we'll ride that one.
Some good gravel in New Zealand, like.
There is, yeah.
Very good.
There's a lot of good gravel down there, and so if I get some good training, I might go to the race in Girona in September and see what happens after that. The racing doesn't really... I just want to go and see what it's like to ride on a nice gravel track rather than what we rode.
Girona's special.
I
like it.
Yeah, it's a good place to do it, but yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Vamos. Thank you.
Thank you.